Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Bitcoin News Live. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and we've got a great and timely show ahead of us today. We've just endured one of, if not the most chaotic months in MSTR history. What started with Strategy's 32 Bitcoin test sale to inoculate the market was followed by a 15% crash in Bitcoin's price. Critics called it the beginning of the end and warned of an unwind of Strategy's nearly 850,000 Bitcoin stash. And they looked like they had a point, with Strategy's crown jewel, STRC, falling 25%, and the common stock falling below $100 for the first time in over 2 years. Then this week's bombshell hit. Saylor announced Strategy had sold 3,588 Bitcoin, worth more than $200 million, to raise cash to cover its dividend obligations. And yet somehow Bitcoin's price actually went up. CEO Feng Li says Strategy is evolving from a one-way capital issuance to active capital management. The bulls called it proof the machine works in both directions. Since then, the stock price appears to have stabilized and a new path is being forged with a $2.5 billion cash reserve, a 12% dividend on STRC, and buyback programs locked and loaded. So which is it? The most capital efficient company ever built, headed for a $5 trillion market cap, or a slow motion death spiral ready to begin? Today, I'm joined by Pio and Grain of Salt to break down this new era for what it means for Strategy. All right, let's get these guys up on stage. We've got Grain and we've got Pio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so you guys are both fresh to our channel. I know you guys are friends. You guys already streamed together. But why don't you introduce yourselves? Let's start off with Mike, a.k.a. Grain of Salt.
Hey, so Mike Flaum. I'm based out of San Francisco. I've been in San Francisco for almost 2 years, but I've been on the West Coast since 2000. I was a tech guy, executive briefing center around the world, and product manager, launched many hardware products that were used in both cloud computing and the build out of the internet back in the internet bubble. So I've seen, I don't know, 5 different bubbles now from the inside. I've been living basically for the past 2.5 years, been so-called retired based upon what I've accomplished in Bitcoin and MSTR. And I've went all in on Bitcoin, basically Bitcoin derivatives, because most of my assets were held in IRA accounts. So I went to Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and that was in May of 2017, and it's 9 years later. So I've seen quite a bit.
That's quite the story. Yeah, you're approaching Bitcoin OG status. So almost a decade. And I think once you get to a decade in Bitcoin, you can call yourself sort of an OG there.
That's the cutoff. Okay, I agree.
Nice. All right, Pio, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Embarrassingly, I'm a content guy, just muting myself, and my camera's got bad shutter speed right now, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, I've been running a media company for about 5 years in the Bitcoin crypto space. And before that, I was a tech guy too. I worked at Robinhood as my last day job, but really a content guy through and through. I only had day jobs because I had to. And just happy to be here at this point. I've been invested in Bitcoin since about April 2020.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's been quite 6 years to be in Bitcoin. That's roughly when I got into it hardcore. I touched my first Bitcoin back in 2017, like Grain here, but finally went deep down the rabbit hole in 2020. But now we're all here, and we're 3 Bitcoin content creators, and we've got to talk about the man of the hour, the company of the hour, MSTR. It's definitely taken up the whole entire just thought space over the last month, really. It's been quite the month. And I really thought, who better to break it all down than you two here? Because I know you're both big MSTR bulls, and you've gotten up, you stood up, and you've defended the company during these trying times. So let's start off the conversation. Let's start off with Grain. How would you define Strategy in its current configuration?
Look, how would I define it? They do something that Bitcoin can't do. So if you buy one Bitcoin, you always have one Bitcoin. One Bitcoin's one Bitcoin. We see this all the time. What I just posted, and I've done this before, Strategy had a metric called sats per share, which is about 211,000 sats per share. In January, I inverted the metric. I did shares per Bitcoin. And so sats per share, you want to go up. The metric is just inverted. And so what I did is it's shares per Bitcoin. So I just recalculated it again. And people talk about dilution all the time. Yes, they floated more shares, but they've acquired 4 times as many Bitcoin as per shares. So they started off at about 1,770 shares per Bitcoin. And now it's about, I just did the calculation, I believe it's 475. And so what happens is, yeah, it's 476. So they have increased the amount of Bitcoin per share. And if you just buy straight Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin always equals 1 Bitcoin. And so the price will fluctuate on the share price, but that's what it is. It's a leverage play on Bitcoin. If you don't like it, don't buy it. If you just want to say there's always dilution, then you have to think about they have the largest stack. And the last point I want to make on this is that why is it interesting? They have 800 and almost 40,000 Bitcoin. And we get an update pretty much every Monday with an 8K filing with the SEC, and we see exactly what they did with their stack. It's like, oh my God, we don't get that information from anybody else. It's like reading tea leaves. So from that perspective, a lot of people are like, I don't like what they did. I'm like, okay, but they have the biggest stack that we're aware of, and they've acquired it all in less than, just a shade of, it'll be 6 years in August. Yeah. So that's my take on it.
Nice. And Pio, yeah, let's get your take on what strategy currently is. And I want your opinion on how much that has changed in the last year. Because a year ago, roughly, they started offering the prefs, and now they seem to be sort of a different company than they were previous to that. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's a really cool company. I think it's a company that is taking Bitcoin and kind of shaping it. And that's probably going to piss a lot of people off just saying that, right? Because it's like Bitcoin's Bitcoin, right? They're shaping it and they're creating products built on top of Bitcoin. The tech guys want to always say, well, it's not built on top of Bitcoin. It's in the traditional financial system. You have to understand this is the way the world works, right? So they're taking Bitcoin and they're giving people access to Bitcoin in different unique ways that nobody else has done yet. They've invented this strategy, right? And they're doing it through the traditional financial system. I think it's super cool. You talked about the difference between now versus a year ago. Let's call it a year and a half ago. Exactly 18 months ago is when Strike, the first preferred equity, launched. I view that as the start of phase 2 of strategy. Phase 1 was acquiring Bitcoin, and obviously we're still acquiring Bitcoin and will be probably until 2 million Bitcoins. I'm sure Grain has an opinion on this too, but 840,000 Bitcoins at this point in a really short period of time. And really this second leg has produced an insane amount of Bitcoin. If you kind of look at a chart of like the parabolic growth of the Bitcoin holdings of strategy, it is insane. And by the way, bears give them zero credit for that. Bears act like they own 0 Bitcoin and act that like accumulating 840,000 Bitcoins is just like, yeah, that's whatever. We're not going to give any credit for that, right? But phase 2 is so interesting because the first phase, convertible debt, raising capital, via that instrument to buy Bitcoin, was a pretty one-dimensional thing. It was like, we're going to do this, we're going to buy Bitcoin. And then obviously there's the introduction of the ATM. That's kind of the simple first version. Introducing these preferred instruments is super cool. It not only benefits strategy, it benefits people that invest in the preferred equities, like my mom, for example, who's got a different risk tolerance than me as an investor, right? She's able to buy a stretch or a strike and collect this dividend either twice a month or once a quarter. Maybe that changes over time. And it just kind of gives her a different kind of exposure to Bitcoin while, paying her cash multiple times a month or multiple times a year. And he's just doing a super cool thing. And it's more sustainable, in my opinion. It makes more sense, just generally speaking, because of the factors that I just brought up. And it's just not risky in the same way that convertible debt was. So I'm excited to see what phase 3 looks like. I think it's going to take years to get to phase 3, but the way I'm looking at it is Saylor is going to accumulate Bitcoin up until like maybe 2 million Bitcoins, and then the business will probably change. Obviously, it's going to change along the way, but it's just a super cool company doing novel things that most people don't understand, and it makes a lot of people really mad.
It does have an amazing way of doing that. And it is quite the feat of what they've been able to accomplish, right? I remember when they were approaching 210,000 Bitcoin, 1% of the total supply, and it was like, oh my God, could they actually make it? And now they're 4 times that, right? It's just absolutely mind-boggling, the multiple they've been able to do here. So let's right off the bat address some of the criticisms that we've heard as of late. And the first one I want to talk about is the change in guidance the fact that they say one thing as a company and then they're very quick to do something different. Grain, why don't you take this first? What would you say to people who say that the strategy is constantly changing their plans here?
It's true that strategy continuously changes their plans. I can do something that almost nobody will do. And this is why nobody will debate me, is because I can concede a point, and people believe this slippery slope argument. If they concede any point, it weakens them. But with me, it strengthens what I say, because I'll immediately say, yeah, that's correct. I can also be critical. Look, I have millions of dollars in strategy that are now down 75%. And people are like, oh, you pump your own bags. I'll tell you guys right now, I want the price of Bitcoin to go up, and I want the price of strategy stock to go up so they buy more of the magical Bitcoins. That's the way, and I tell people that's my incentives. So I can concede a point up front. And so with that said, sure. And so they changed their guidance, right? That is not good. And so I'll give you two examples. In July of last year, late July, they came out guidance that they would not sell MSTR shares below 2.5. 2 weeks later, they changed it. That guidance is still up because I retweeted it about a week ago. And I said, and the joke is like the Seinfeld episode. The most important of making the reservation is keeping the reservation, right? When you go to get the rental car. And so I said, you gave guidance and you changed it. So that's not good. Then the second thing they did recently was they came out and they said, by the way, 1 MNAV is not our metric for being accretive. Their metric is 1.22. So that was a shock to the system, because I'll tell you, almost 100% of the people thought it was 1.0. Now, for me, if 1.0 is the goal, I'd want to be at 1.1. I just want to be above that so I don't drop below 1.0, right? So when that came out, it was 1.22. Then they continued to issue MSTR shares below 1.22. So they gave a form of guidance, and then they started issuing more shares. And the reason why this was problematic is they bought back the converts, which used $1.38 billion in cash, and they didn't have enough. They only had 6 months of cash to pay the dividends. So they had to sell more MSTR shares to raise cash. And if you raise cash, I'll concede another point right here. If you sell MSTR shares for cash, you don't buy Bitcoin, it's not accretive to the holders. People are like, oh God. And I just admit it. Now for the year, they're up 7.8% on their yield, and they've done a 4X since they've started. But for some reason, everybody forgets that. They're like, oh, the last couple transactions were not accretive. I'm like, yeah, but they have the highest amount of cash ever, $2.55 billion, and almost 18 months of dividend payments. So they use each metric individually, and you have to look at the whole piece. So I'm able to concede those points. Yes. Would I prefer the stock to be higher? Sure.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And Pio, I've got a question for you. One thing that we've seen over the last couple of months is Saylor retweeting a lot of these DeFi projects that were built on top of Stretch, like Apix and Saturn, right? And those are built on protocols other than Bitcoin, correct? So, and it also introduces a lot of leverage into the system. And what we've seen in the past is that leverage can be pretty deadly when it comes to crypto projects. So what is your take on these DeFi protocols built on top of STRC?
I think STRC is effectively a brand new financial product. I think it just turned a year old, or it's about to turn a year old. And I think that there are going to be products built on top of Stretch without question. Like you're being completely unrealistic if you think that there aren't going to be a lot of projects built on Stretch. I view right now between competitors to MicroStrategy like Asti, Strive, right? Between companies like that and companies that are building products on top of Stretch within crypto or within Bitcoin, right? It is the easiest time to build a massive company ever in the history of the world, right? It's the most asymmetric opportunity ever. You can either copy Saylor, like Strive is doing. And I own Strive stock, and I like Matt Cole and I like the team over there. So that's not me saying anything negative about them. I'm saying it's pretty cool that you can literally copy Saylor. Matt Cole has a path to building an enormous company that is way different. If you try to compete with Tesla and you're Rivian, you still have to make the cars. You still have to get the batteries and everything, right? With these Bitcoin treasury companies, you can literally do the same thing that Saylor's doing. And in fact, you can start with a blank sheet of paper and say, well, what's worked the best for MicroStrategy and Saylor, and just do those two things, right? We're just going to do the common stock and we're going to do the stretch equivalent. And hey, we'll throw in a daily dividend. That's kind of cool. Maybe people will want our thing, right? We'll pay a little bit more yield. And you can just build a huge company. I think Strive's going to be a huge company in a couple of years, right? If you're on the DeFi side, you can say, well, hey, there's no stable coins that are mainstream right now that are paying out significant yields. There just aren't. And people are scared of that because of Terra Luna and these previous entities, BlockFi, insert 2021 bull run bad actor here, right? But Stretch is pretty damn bulletproof, right? These guys have 840,000 Bitcoins. They're the most public about their Bitcoin holdings and their strategy. Like Grain pointed out, it's a publicly traded company that's been in business for 30 years. Major institutions are backing it, yada, yada, yada. Well, why don't I, offer 5 or 6% yield via a stablecoin? I'll develop the stablecoin tech. That's not really that big of a deal at this point in 2026. And we'll back it with Stretch. And we'll arbitrage, the difference between what Stretch pays and what we pay. And over time, people are going to figure out this isn't a Terra Luna thing. This is actually a viable, line of, or just a viable product. And, people are going to want to, actually buy our thing. So that's going to happen. As all things that are new and all things in crypto do, I think that there's a little bit of turbulence on the way. And I think it's unrealistic to not expect some kind of turbulence. What Saylor's doing, Mike was just talking about, all the pivots and changing course. I'm not as harsh when it comes to that stuff, because I look at what have they done? They've acquired 840,000 Bitcoins, which no one gives them enough credit for, like I said, and that's a massive, massive accomplishment. And then number two, what are they doing? They're doing brand new stuff in the most brand new sector of all time. It's way more brand new than AI, because everyone's known that AI was going to happen since the 60s. I mean, Stanley Kubrick did 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968 or something, right? This is not a new concept at all. New digital money built on top of the internet is something that humans just do not understand. I mean, I have people in my replies just trashing Bitcoin all the time. I'm like, this is just so funny to me. And so, to kind of wrap up on this, what Strategy's doing is it's like a rodeo. It's like they're riding a bull. So do they have to change course a lot? Yeah, they have to change course because they're on a bucking, it's an insane thing that they're doing, right? And so do I think that there's going to be products that fail that try to build on top of Stretch? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that there's going to be turbulence in the Stretch price over the next year? You're seeing it right now. It's happening right now. Will it happen again? Yeah, absolutely. You just have to factor this stuff in and realize these products are going to be here. People are going to make billions of dollars building adjacent to Strategy or on top of Strategy, and that's just going to happen. So do you want to benefit from it, or do you want to complain about it?
Do you have anything to follow up on that, Green?
Yeah. Look, if you want to listen to the naysayers, if you want to listen to people that have these inflammatory takes on X that have high follower counts, I'll give you a good example. I'll call him out, Jacob King. He's a complete clown, right? And he just said, Saylor is going to get margin called. And I wrote back to him, I go, but Saylor doesn't buy on margin. And then he started an attack on me. I'm like, and I wrote back, how does Saylor get margin? I just repeated the same thing back to him. The problem is that these accounts have 250, 500,000 followers, and people love inflammatory remarks. And what I'm going to tell people is this. And this is where, I get that some people just don't like me because they don't understand what I'm talking about. The prefs operate in a quirk. I use the word quirk because I'm triggering something in people's brains. Like, quirk? What do you mean by a quirk? The prefs do not increase ADSO, assumed diluted shares outstanding, because they sit higher in the capital stack. And so what happens is this is where the term amplification comes from. What the hell does that mean? Saylor just made up amplification. No, so the prefs are not in ADSO, assumed diluted shares outstanding. So this is why it's very accretive to use STRC and to go after a cohort or a group of people, Pio's mom, say, hey, I just want to, I want something to stay there. I want to get paid 12% or 11.5%. Now it's 12%. I just want to get paid that. And I think it's great. It's triple what I'd get paid in US Treasuries. Like, okay, great. But then if I say to any of these guys that have these large accounts and they're dudes, and I'm like, explain to me how prefs work. Explain to me amplification. They're like, oh, the stock price went down. And then I just said, you know what? I really can't entertain talking to you because you don't understand capital market formation. The bummer that happened is a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies didn't get it, except for Strategy and Strive for the most part. And from that perspective, it's rough on the people that bought those other Bitcoin treasury companies, including me. I bought 2 other ones that didn't do well at all. But with that said, they cannot reconstruct and explain how the prefs work. And it's like, oh, but you see, it lost its peg. It never had a peg. What it had was a target range. Now, is that window dressing? Be the first person to say, do I want to see Stretch trading below $90? No, I don't. I would like it to go back up. And I'll give you the reason. I will tell people the reason why this happened. And I'll tell you the exact reason. STRC was able to go up 324%. I believe it was either this year or from the start. There's a slide that Strategy put out. And what happened was it was highly accretive to acquiring Bitcoin. Known fact. What happened was it was too much too fast. That's it. It was just, they bought too much Bitcoin too fast. And the market itself, there's a lot of shares that were out there. It's not that they weren't accretive. It's not that the math doesn't work. It was just too much too fast. And they bought back the converts. People are like, you see, grain of salt just said. I'm like, hindsight's 2020. Just because you could do something, the hardest thing that people have to realize with Bitcoin is just because you're capable of doing it, maybe show a little bit of restraint. That's it. Just back down. I can tell people I would rather be buying Bitcoin at 50% off its all-time high than going all in at the all-time high. And you got to buy when there's blood in the streets. It's the same with any stock. You don't want to be buying the stock at an all-time high, right? You want to sell when the stock is at, and they're like, oh, you sell everything? No, you sell some. You pay taxes. Oh, taxes are illegal. Well, until they eliminate taxes, you know the other word that people don't say? The P word, profit. You never hear that in a speech. You ever hear anybody say, I took a profit. Oh, what happened? Oh, I had to pay taxes. It'll be very clear. Are we allowed to swear on your show? I don't want to swear.
Go for it.
Yeah, you know what? Fuck you pussies out there. Okay? I'm just going to say it right now. I'm on the show. I've had multiple years where I paid multiple millions of dollars in taxes. So fuck you pussies. I can't get out of paying taxes. I can't. And when somebody says, why do I follow Fred Krueger? You know what he said? I started watching his space when he had like 20,000 followers. Now he's 300. And he said something. Oh, the first time I ever had a 7-figure tax bill was in the late 90s. I'm like, dude, you had a 7-figure tax bill in the 90s? That took me until like, I don't know, 2021. I was like, damn, that's freaking impressive. And everybody, and of course the naysayers come in. Why'd you pay taxes? It's like it's the P word. He took a profit, probably bought some really nice stuff with it, and he lived his life. And that's what I did. I took a profit. And let me tell you something. I say this all the time. When Bitcoin takes an all-time high, sell 20%, pay your taxes, and go live an awesome life. And if you're too chicken shit to pay your taxes because you don't like it, then live with that. That's it. And if somebody wants to clip this, they can clip it.
Let's go.
I approve the message I just gave.
That was fire. All right, nice.
Hold on. You see these helmets? That's because I go to the track. These are car helmets. I have motorcycles and cars and stuff. People are like, what the hell? Can I finish my little rant right here?
Please.
This will get people excited, pumped up.
What's he going to do? What do you have to show us, sir?
So I did something called a Post-it note. It's back in the olden days. It was a yellow thing you stick on things. They don't do, nobody uses Post-it notes anymore because I'm like older than dirt. And I read this book, Bitcoin Billionaires. And I knew that when I read this book, I was bummed because the 2017 peak of Bitcoin was 20,000, right? And so I said, I had to live through the bear market of 2018, and the Bitcoin comes out by Ben Mesrich. This is the guy that did the story about the guys that played 21 and beating the casinos. So I read the book. It's about the Winklevi twins, right? And so I read this book. It was awesome. They talk about Charlie Shrem, the OG guys. And I just read the book 7/23/2019. And I said, I'll look back. Price of Bitcoin was $9,505. It's up 6x from there. And I knew some point in the future, I would be like, what the hell did I do? I screwed up. And so I wrote that right here on the book. And I said, when I leave it like it used to be on the inside. Now I leave it like this. And whenever I feel bad, I look back. And what I tell everybody is just write a Post-it note someplace. It's different when you write down on a piece of paper than on your phone. You have to go scroll and look through it. And then you look at it. And this is how you don't get psyched out. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? If you can't handle it, then go buy treasuries.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is meant to help us get our time back, live a better life, enjoy it while we have it, right? So there's plenty of nuggets of wisdom that you just dropped on us, and I appreciate that rant you just gave us. But let's bring it back to the strategy, and I want to talk to Pio about marketing. You're a content guy. You're a marketing guy. You know how important words are and the combination of those words and how they come off to other people. So when it comes to Fong Li and Saylor going on interviews and saying that STRC is like a savings account, is like a money market fund, this ruffled a lot of feathers and made some people mad. Do you think they were right in comparing it to these other financial vehicles, or was that a big faux pas?
Well, it looks like a faux pas now that the price went down by any amount of money, right? But in theory, they are right. So I think like Saylor is just an insanely smart, I think he's a genius, right? Like a full tilt, blow off top genius, however you want to put it. Like as, a Jeff Bezos level guy for sure. In the same conversation as an Elon Musk. I mean, I know Elon is like a really high bar, but I'm just saying, like, I really think this guy is that level. And I think that the products he made are what he said that they are. I think it's just really early for these things. And I think it's really easy for Stretch to go down to $85. I don't think it's that hard for that to happen. And I think that so many investors just don't take responsibility for themselves. And so many investors hate it when the price of anything goes down. They hate it so much. And I also think people aren't used to owning things. And most people are just trading in and out of stuff 24/7 and nobody like owns anything. And the people that do own things just get super rich. And that's why not that many people are rich. Like I've seen people in Bitcoin or in crypto that have been in for just as long as me. And I've watched how Bitcoin has changed my life and investing has changed my life. And the people that I'm referencing here that I've seen that have been in it for just as long as me are broke. They have less money now, despite getting access to the same stuff as me and being as early as me. And it's because people don't own things and people don't understand how to own things. And they absolutely hate it when the price goes down, including smart people, including people that have a lot of money, including people that have humongous followings on X, including my business partner, Nick O'Neill, Choose Rich Nick, who just hates it when the price goes down and is one of the best indicators of tops and bottoms of all time. The technical guys get all the tops and bottoms wrong 24/7 with the charts and everything. They're all wrong. If any of those guys were ever right, they'd be the most famous person on the planet because you just follow them and you get rich. The soft indicators are way better at checking tops and bottoms. And you can look at Nick's tweets and put them on the chart and it shows the bottom. And that's just because of price going down. So I think people got really upset that the Stretch price went down, and that's as simple as it is. And I think the price will go back up and I think it will stabilize over time. I think it's a hard thing to create, but it has been created and it will be maintained. And I think Saylor was right in what he was saying, but there's going to be turbulence along the way and people just really didn't like that. So I guess he shouldn't have said it. It doesn't matter. He said it. It's over. It's done. I still like Stretch. A lot of people still like Stretch. Smart people like Stretch. And I don't think that's going to change.
Do you have a follow-up on that, Green?
Look, I agree with that. I was there in New York when he talked about it this way. And then he followed up with it by saying that, a penny of volatility. Now, excuse me for a second. Penny of volatility. Well, when you talk about it's 1 BIP, there's 100 pips and 1%. So when it was 1 penny and he was posting about this, it was a little bit aggressive. Was it legal? I'm not a lawyer, but I think it was. In retrospect, again, it went really fast. It acquired a lot of Bitcoin very fast. And in retrospect, like we'd say now, be a little bit less aggressive. That's it.
There you go. And I want to bring it back to Pio with the marketing. he did a lot of AI advertisements. I'm not meant to live an uncomfortable life, right? And the other one that I think was actually more aggravating to hardcore Bitcoiners was the one where he said that they turn Bitcoin into money. And so Michael Saylor is very clear in saying that Bitcoin is digital capital, but they turn it into money. Where a lot of Bitcoiners are here, no, Bitcoin is money. So where do you land on that debate? Is Bitcoin digital capital or is Bitcoin money?
So number one, this is my least favorite subject matter out of anything. I think that ideological Bitcoiners and even bigger. So ideological Bitcoiners are some of the biggest losers on the planet. Ideological crypto people are way bigger losers because they're also just wrong. You know, at least the Bitcoin people are in the right spot. You know what I mean? The crypto people, I'm like, yo, you guys are like, are you smoking crack? Like what is happening here, right? There's no one worse than the ideological crypto people. Second worst is the ideological Bitcoin people. I don't even think that conversation is worth having. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Bitcoin is Bitcoin, whatever you can call it something, but you're just an idiot. So it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like whoever you are. So I just think it's the stupidest thing to like ever discuss. It's the ultimate waste of breath. And it's so stupid. All those people are anonymous on Twitter and they don't have that much Bitcoin. They're like actually broke. They don't have like good businesses or careers or like fulfilled lives. They like live in the middle of nowhere and have like no money. So that's true. That's 100% true. Right. So there's that. What was the first part of the question? The second part was
the AI advertisements.
Oh, so I like, first of all, Twitter is the nerdiest social media platform out of all of them. And AI stuff works best on Twitter because most people on Twitter are nerds and they like AI video, right? I don't like realistic human AI video. It makes me uncomfortable. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. I just am not really like, I don't want to watch that. I have a friend, guy went to Harvard, wrote for The Simpsons. He's all in on AI video right now. He's doing, you've probably seen his stuff on Twitter. He's crushing. He's doing political AI video. He did a bunch of stuff for the Spencer Pratt campaign in LA. He is crushing. He's making so much money, right? And so like, I respect that for sure. I think the AI video stuff works on Twitter because people on Twitter are nerds. I think it makes perfect sense. It's right fastball down the middle for the giga nerd of all, Michael Saylor, to do AI video. And like, he's going to pay one guy to do AI video. It's the most efficient way to make videos. He's not going to pay like a production team to do like a sketch like I do about strategies. No, let's just rip the AI video. It's going to piss a lot of people off. A lot of nerds are going to like it. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's engineered for Twitter. I don't know. I think he hit it out of the park. The fact that he asked a question says it all. Like, you know, it's pissing a lot of people off and a lot of other people clearly like it because they're nerds. So there you go.
That is the point of advertisement, right? To get us all talking about it. What's your take on the AI ads, Green?
You know what? If STRC stayed in a range between, let's say, 98 and 100, everybody would be like, AI videos are great. They got millions of views. And going back to what he just said was, look, hiring if you want to hire a production company to make some AI videos and your strategy, they'll show up and they'll be like, you know, Saylor, look, we got a whole program for you. It's going to be $5 million. He's like, $5 million? I could do this on my phone for free in 20 minutes. Why would he pay money to go do it? And he did it. He got exactly what he wanted. You know, I do think that sometimes I'll give you a good example of a tweet that he did, an AI tweet of him on a life raft with the Titanic sinking. And he thought when he did it was, oh, the Bitcoin is the life raft and that will save your life when the Titanic's sinking. But a bunch of people thought it's like, oh no, MSTR,
my ship is sinking.
My ship is sinking, and therefore he's abandoning the ship. So I think that was the thing where you can be a genius, but sometimes you just don't think about it, how it could be used against you. And so with that, it was like, I got his point and I got the other people's point, and I was like, you know, because the life raft was orange. So it's a significant. He
doesn't know visual story. He's not Steven Spielberg. You know, he doesn't know visual storytelling. You can't ask him to make a film, right? That's right. Actually super funny.
Right. And sometimes things are literal and sometimes things are figurative. And you're like, what the hell you just said? And I'm like, oh God, sometimes anyway, like you just said, visual storytelling. It kind of, that one, I think a little bit backfired a little bit on him, but I understand why he built it. So my takeaway with this is, sure, in retrospect, if the stock price was rocketing up on both STRC and MSTR, the naysayers wouldn't matter. But right now you're in a bear market. So it's like, you see, if he wouldn't have done this, his stock would have been higher. That's not, they're just using this to, for ammunition. It gets a lot of clicks.
Gets a lot of clicks. Absolutely. And next, I want to dive into how strategy buys their Bitcoin. They get a lot of flack for that. But before we get into that, we got to give a shout out to our good friends over at Rhino Bitcoin. Previously, getting access to Bitcoin financial services was slow, clunky, and scattered across all these different platforms. Well, Rhino is changing that. Rhino is a next generation Bitcoin banking app designed to handle all of your Bitcoin needs in one place. With Rhino, you buy Bitcoin with zero fees. You get more sats for every dollar you spend. You make payments over the Lightning Network instantly and near zero fees there as well. Send cash globally over Bitcoin rails. And of course, you can DCA, set up automatic saving plans so you can stack sats on your schedule and build wealth over time. Soon, you'll be able to pay bills, direct deposit, and even save for retirement all within the app with no questions asked. And of course, Rhino protects your Bitcoin with biometric verification, 24/7 fraud protection, and the confidence of knowing your Bitcoin is never, ever rehypothecated. Go today to rhinobitcoin.com and download for both iOS and Android. Use the code Bitcoin News, one word, Bitcoin News, and Rhino will drop you $10 in Bitcoin just for getting started. Rhino is built to keep you in control of your Bitcoin every minute of every day. Go check them out. Great people, great team, and they are rapidly evolving the app and their offerings. Highly recommend checking out Rhino. So that brings us to the question of how strategy buys their Bitcoin. They get so much flack for buying the top. They're always buying the top. I think that plan might have changed a little bit in their latest guidance, but tell us, Grain, why do they have that reputation?
So because they buy over the counter. And the reason why they do that is that they don't want to move the price of Bitcoin. They don't want to be seen as, this is a operating company managing a treasury. If they were a hedge fund, they could buy in the open market. And nobody's going to do a market order for 10 or 20 or 50,000 spot Bitcoin. You get too much, the technical term is you get slippage. If you're trying to buy it, the price can run higher. If you're trying to sell it, the price can run lower. So the definition of liquidity, there's multiple definitions of liquidity, but liquidity means is, can I do a transaction without the price changing? And so they buy over the counter to try and eliminate the slippage. It just turns out that when they buy, right, it seems like they're always buying the local top. They buy at 62,000. Then on Monday, they make their announcement. Let's say that it's at 60,000. It's like, dude, they always bought the most expensive for a given week. Do I think it's mostly noise, given that from when they started to now, they have almost 4 times as much Bitcoin per share? I think it's noise. But people like to, it's always the accounts with less than 500 followers. You see this transaction, I don't like it. I'm like, they've done 114 transactions and they've acquired 843,000 Bitcoin. And you're like, no, I don't like this transaction the way it was done. Okay, what about the other 113 transactions? So they don't look at again, they just nitpick to say, this is what I don't like. It's kind of like if you run a marathon and you don't break the 3-hour mark or the 4-hour mark, it's like, oh, well, you trained for 3 years and you ran the marathon, but you didn't break the 4-hour mark. You must suck. It's like, what? So I think that's the part that I like. They kind of miss the whole big picture.
Yeah. And Pio, now my question for you is, you said your mom has STRC. Do you have STRC? Like, I'm trying to think of who is the perfect person to buy this product, right? Can a person in retirement handle the volatility now that we've seen that it can drop 25%? And does someone who's young in their earning years, would they just be better off buying Bitcoin themselves? So who do you think is the perfect person to buy STRC?
So my business owns STRC, like my business entity with our, corporate balance sheet has STRC, which I think is great for a business. And I know it went down, and yes, Nick was in my ear about how it went down, as you can imagine. Right. So that's a whole thing. I bought I have the most negligible amount, and I bought it in the past week and a half because it was so low in distress. So I was like, all right, let me just get some of this and start building a position of it. But no, I'm a Bitcoin MSTR guy, of course, because I'm a math guy. When I first got to college, I was a math major, and I ended up switching to engineering. So I'm a math person, and I understand that the growth from an MSTR or a Bitcoin is going to absolutely smoke stretch. It's just not worth doing stretch for me. For my mom and like a retired person, over time, I do believe stretch is going to stabilize and be a no-brainer product for them. We've now seen the first stress test, the first example of the price going down. My mom's a badass. She understands everything. She knows like about MicroStrategy. She wasn't worried about it at all. But that's, probably rare compared to like a lot of older people and a lot of people's parents, yada, yada, yada. What I do think stretch is super interesting for is for like if you're playing the cycle of Bitcoin, and you're playing the cycle of just financial markets in general, which I think more and more people will, especially since this bear market has kind of like pulverized a lot of people. And I think a lot of people thought this time was going to be different. And it turns out like Bitcoin still kind of is doing the same thing. And then because strategy has amplified Bitcoin, strategy goes down even more, right? So I think a lot of people that own a lot of strategy will probably sell a lot of strategy when it's $900 or however much, right? It's a clean 10x from here in not that long is my prediction, like a couple of years, not really that long if you're an investor, right? And probably don't want to ride it all the way down. I mean, I have thousands of shares of MicroStrategy. It's going to be worth a lot of money. Do I want to ride it down 60% from the top or something like that? 70% from the top? We'll have to see this time. Stretch gives you something to convert it into. You can, like, if you have $2.5 million of MicroStrategy in a couple of years, and I know not everybody has that, but a lot of people will have that. A lot of people will have $2, $3, $4, $5 million of MicroStrategy. You can just convert it into Stretch, and you're getting like $20,000 to $50,000 a month paid out, in 2 installments per month. And it's tax deferred. It's going to be pretty attractive, and if you think that it's going to stay cyclical, Bitcoin's going to stay cyclical, it's going to be better to do that than to just hold it. And I know Fred Krueger's like, all you got to do is hold. All you got to do is hold. And he's right. He's right. But at the same time, it's like, at some point turning strategy into $2.5 million and getting paid 12% on it, 11%, 10% on it twice a month, 2 payments a month, tax deferred. That's like a New York City, like loft in Soho. It's going to be pretty sweet,
And what's your take on that, Grain? Who do you think is the perfect person to own STRC?
I think it goes more towards, look, people should have a balanced account based upon the risk profile. So typically STRC would be for the retirement crowd. I mean, that would be the group that should get it. If you're young, look, if you're a young person, it is really hard. And I have a daughter that's going to be graduating college in a year, and it is fundamentally way harder for the young people to get ahead. It's just true. The debate, any Bitcoiner knows this, the debasement of currency combined with inflation, those are 2 different things. There's money printing and there's inflation. And so from that perspective, it's much harder. So do I think that if you're a retiree, that I think that STRC is a great product? Sure. What I think happened in this down cycle, and they know now that they have to be a little bit more conservative, both with how much they issue with it. Just because it trades over $100 doesn't mean that they necessarily buy Bitcoin with it. I've said this, just do it 50-50. When it goes above $100, put 50% in cash and 50% into Bitcoin. So it's a little bit slower than putting at $101. It was the volume. The volume was when it's a certain amount, they would put that 100% into Bitcoin. I'm just saying instead of putting 100% and do it 50-50, increase the cash balance. And so I think that would be great for them. I think that if you're younger, the only way you're ever going to be able to pay off your student loan debt or to save enough money to buy a house, put down a down payment, is you're going to have to be either in native Bitcoin or you're going to have to be in the common stock, whether it's MSTR or ASST, or it's going to be obviously in the Mag 7. That's your choice. There's maybe like 20 or 30 equities that you could buy. Start with the Mag 7. I think there's, the chip trade, AI. I think you invest in that. That's about it. If you got to get ahead. Now, if you're in wealth preservation, if you're 65, 70 years old, then you go towards more like the fixed income, the STRC.
Well, that brings us to the big news of the week, the sale. 3,588 Bitcoin were put up on the market by Strategy in order to raise over $200 million to pay off their dividends. Of course, Michael Saylor's one of his famous lines is never sell your Bitcoin. And then at Prague, he said, I didn't mean for us to never sell our Bitcoin. It's for you to never sell your Bitcoin. Well, now they did it, and they did it in size. And the interesting thing was that Bitcoin was actually up on the day when they did sell. So I want to get the take of both of you on this in terms of psychologically, where does this put strategy in the market, and how much do you think they're actually going to sell moving forward? Pio, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, Saylor said that he was going to do this for months, really for like the whole year. And he said exactly why. Everything was fully communicated. You can just never expect social media users on Twitter and crypto Twitter to ever understand anything. And I also found out a lot of people had no idea that there were any preferreds besides Stretch, which I found interesting. But then I took a step back and I was like, okay, I'm obsessed with this thing, but that doesn't mean everybody's obsessed with this thing. But it's interesting that these people that don't know anything about it are expressing definitive opinions, to large audiences about the thing. So I didn't have any problem with the sale because I knew it was coming, and I was told exactly why it was going to happen and all the reasons and blah, 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 the S&P inclusion and the rating agencies and yada, yada, yada. I know that it wasn't like a thing done out of necessity. And with regard to the price going up afterwards, I think a lot of that stuff is like coincidental. I'm not a huge, the market doesn't like it, like all that stuff. Cause like when he issued the prefs, the price of MSTR was going down. And I was like, these things are super cool. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, so I'm not seeing like a correlation between what's actually happening with the business and the price. And I've been a Tesla investor. I've been a Robinhood, I worked at Robinhood during the IPO. So I was like, this company's good. I've been a user for years. I really like Robinhood. Wow. Like I'm seeing everybody crush it here at the company. IPOs at 60, goes up to 80, draws down 90% to $8, stays at $8 for like 18 months, just stays there. Now it's over $100. Was the market right? I don't get it. Like, I'm pretty sure Vlad's still doing the same thing at Robinhood he was when it was $8. I don't really get the whole, like, Peter Schiff talks about this. Like, why is Bitcoin 500K? Why isn't Bitcoin 500K? Mike Alfred's like, dude, why was Amazon 90% lower 7 years ago than it is now? Like, was it a different Amazon? Like, is it that much better now? I just don't read that much into that stuff. I think you have to buy it and wait.
All right, Green, take it away.
I'll be a little more aggressive with this, and I posted this. So there's a metric called net debt leverage on Strategy's website, and the way the strategy calculates it, you take the debt minus the cash, and then you over the Bitcoin held, and right now it's 8%. So this is just a theoretical thing. Strategy could sell 100,000 Bitcoin. People are like, oh my God, the price of Bitcoin would crash. Okay, so be it. But let's assume they sell 100,000 Bitcoin at 60,000. That gets them $6 billion, right? People be like, okay, what does that do for them? Well, yeah, the $6 billion plus the 2.5 billion. Now their net debt leverage would be a negative number. So 8%, the part that people don't get about math is that their net debt leverage is 8%. That's the equivalent of going to buy $1 million house and putting down $920,000 in cash for it. People think it's reversed the other way, that they're borrowing 92%. No, they're not borrowing 92%. They're coming to the house with a 92% down payment. Where'd they get the down payment from? They sold the equities. And like, you see, they sold the equities. They borrowed the money. No, they didn't. It's not debt. They don't pay that money back. It's permanent capital. You just make this stuff up. I'm like, no, I don't. These formulas have existed for years. But I want to get back to the selling part. You say, what do I think about selling? I did a poll, and it's on my site, and then we got the results. So I have a little bit less than 27,000 followers. And I said, how many Bitcoin did Strategy sell this past week? And I had 916 votes, and 75% said 0, right? And more than 1,000, only 5% said that. So that goes back to the part that we were not anticipating for this to happen, even though, as Pio had said, they have said, hey, we could sell Bitcoin. The other thing that selling Bitcoin does, it eliminates the Ponzi scheme. How do they pay the dividends? Well, they could sell Bitcoin. Well, they never did. Well, they actually did in 2022. They sold 32. Then they sell this. Well, I don't like this now either because they're selling Bitcoin. It's like you can't ever. They don't like anything. They accumulate Bitcoin, do nothing with it. We don't like that. They sell Bitcoin to pay the dividends. We don't like that either. It's like the price of Bitcoin went down. Well, I guess that's where we are. I mean,
if I can add anything to that, it's the thing that Grain kind of touched on at the end is no matter what you say, the bears reject what you're telling them. And so it's like talking to a brick wall. You can't do anything. And that used to happen like 5 years ago with Bitcoin with me. Like people would just pepper me with questions about Bitcoin. And no matter what I said, they just didn't accept it. So where do you go from there? And people are doing the same thing with MicroStrategy hardcore right now. There's no angle to take. It's like you're telling someone that the sky is blue and they just reject it. Like where's the argument to be had? What's the discussion, you know?
Yeah. So I want to chime in. I'm going to give everybody a life hack. This is the ultimate life hack. Okay. It works in any topic on anything. If you're having a conversation with somebody, all you have to say up front is this: hey, you're talking about alternate side of the street parking. Is there anything I could say to you that would change your mind about alternate side of the street parking? If they go, no, there's nothing you could say, you'll be like, cool, let's go get lunch.
Yeah.
The person has just told you that discussing this there is no benefit at all to you discussing it because they are completely closed-minded. So the bears will always look at the negative stuff. The pessimists will always do that. And that's why I just say, is there anything I could say to change your mind about Bitcoin? They go, no. I'm like, cool. I'm going to grab a Diet Coke. You want to come with me? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, people are like, well, why don't you explain about Bitcoin? I'm like, they just told me there's nothing that I could say that will change their mind. Why would I waste time talking to them? It's a waste of mine and their time. Let's go talk about cars or something else. I don't know.
I hear you. Well, my take on the sale is before they did it, it seemed as if there was like a Mexican standoff between MSTR, STRC, and BTC, right? And one of them had to lose for the other two to win. Well, now they've sold the BTC and Bitcoin didn't crash, right? It's not down another 15, 20%. So that does open my eyes to say, okay, maybe there is something else going on here. Because to be honest, I bought my first MSTR when it was like $350, right? And since then, I feel like I've just been diluted on for like a year and a half. And now they sold some Bitcoin. And at first it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. But now they did it and Bitcoin's holding up. And it seems as if this is part of a bigger plan, right? So let's talk about that bigger plan. How does this all play into S&P 500 inclusion? Pia, if you want to.
I mean, Grain is going to be closer to the subject. My simple understanding is that because he's demonstrated that he will sell Bitcoin, the Bitcoin actually has, tangible value and it can be used to fund these dividends, that the agencies that are responsible for S&P inclusion are more likely to consider MSTR at this point. This is based on specific comments that were already made saying, it would make sense, but he's expressed that he won't sell his Bitcoin, right? And so now he sold it. It's a different story now.
Yeah. So the S&P 500 inclusion, look, I think the over under on this is, I think it's more than a year out. I do think that what's more important is getting an S&P rating on STRC and on the prefs. That is much more important. Getting that back up to the target range of $99 to $100. And they have two programs for stock buybacks, one at $1.25 billion and one at $1 billion. The $1 billion one is for the buybacks of MSTR and the prefs, and the $1.25 billion is just for MSTR, I believe. I could have that reversed. So they have two repurchase programs. I think that what's more important for them is to get a S&P credit rating on STRC. Getting that done really allows them to go after the fixed income market, and I think that would be the higher priority. So I think S&P 500 inclusion, I don't think that'll happen, at least for another year. And we kind of need Bitcoin to go up also. I would like to see them have 4 quarters of positive EPS, which they changed the gap accounting for that. So I think that's a little bit farther off, but it is important to look at how the S&P does rate different, either for S&P 500 inclusion or for the fixed income ratings.
All right. And now as we get towards the end here, let's take a little bit of a step back and just look at Bitcoin as a whole. Grain, you've been in Bitcoin for roughly a decade. Pio and me, both the 2020 babies. How does it feel right now to you guys compared to what you've seen in the past? And what are your hopes looking forward? Pio, take it.
It looks like a bear market. The price went down. People are upset the price went down. The price didn't go down as much as it has in previous bear markets, right? We'll see if it goes down more. I was, looking at the numbers from the previous bear markets, I think the most recent one was something like it was an 80 something percent draw, or maybe 77%. It was over 75%. It was a big drawdown. And I was looking at the math on this and I was like, I don't think we're going to get into like 75% drawdown. I just don't think that's going to happen. Maybe we get to like 70 or something like that. But I just think it's Bitcoin going through its natural course of life as a very young asset. People that have been in this thing for a long time, 2013, 2014, will often say like, we're not early anymore. It's not early anymore. What they mean is, Bitcoin doesn't cost $10 anymore. So it's not going to go from 10 to 100 grand in terms of price, but the actual asset's insanely young. Crypto's even younger. The crypto industry's only existed for like 8 years, 9 years when you think about it. So yeah, I just think that the future is insanely bright. Doesn't mean it's going to go up by 100x in the next 3 years and by price. Most people are only thinking about price. Most people don't understand how to build a massive position in something like Bitcoin and just hold it and let it do its thing and own things for their whole lives, be an owner. I think I'm super happy with Bitcoin and I can't wait to see what happens next. Super cool thing.
Take it, Green.
Look, I said this before about monetary debasement. The U.S. government runs just about a $2 trillion shortfall every year. They have to print. It's about 6.5% over the past 25 years. So that's the increase in M2. That's monetary debasement. There's no way around that. And you people want to blame the Fed. Well, the budget is the responsibility of Congress, and they're running a $2 trillion deficit. So the Fed has to print. That's the credit card. And so that's not going to get fixed. We just know it's not going to get fixed. The second thing is CPI inflation. I was with a buddy here in San Francisco. We went to go get some smash burgers. I treated him to lunch. It's $57. 2 burgers, fries, and Arnold Palmer. No alcohol and a Coke. That's what it was. $57. And so inflation is real. And if I would have went to Five Guys, it would have been $35, right? Or if I would have went to whatever. So inflation is real. That's not due to money printing. It's the price of all the raw materials have just gone up. So that's different. So that's not going to get fixed. The only way you're going to get ahead is if you either buy Bitcoin. If you want to have a leverage play on it, then choose MSTR, choose Strive ASST. That has much greater volatility, both on the upside and on the downside. Or you got maybe, like we said, 10 to 20 stocks that you could possibly buy, Mag 7, AI related, and so forth. That's about it. If you're going to get ahead, if you've already achieved wealth, then that's where STRC comes in, or SATA.
Well, there you go. I think I posed a lot of challenging questions to you guys, and you were able to par them pretty well. And so if you had to guess between MSTR going to 5 trillion or to 0, I guess we're going to lean on the 5 trillion side, right? All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. If people want to find out more about both of you, Grain, where should they go?
I just recently changed my @ symbol. It's @Grain of Salt SF, but in Grain of Salt, I'm on. That's the easiest place to find me. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Pio.
If you search PIO Bitcoin on Twitter, I'm hoping I come up. I mean, good God, fix the algorithm. Like, come on, guys.
And I expect some more funny videos coming out from you and your crew. Are there any coming up soon?
Always, man. These guys are. I'm at my mom's house right now. These guys are gonna come and stay at my mom's house for 9 days to just make videos the whole time. So, dude,
anything for content. Anything for content. Your mom's the STRC compound. That's where she is at. So
damn straight. Damn straight.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. In Bitcoin News Live. We are live every Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're on X, retweet this video. A lot of great nuggets of knowledge and a pretty epic rant in the middle there. Calling some people the P word. All right.
My Gen X comes out completely politically incorrect.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Cheers.